and liftoff.
From the studios of Thoughts and Prayers Production, it's The Logical Report with Sergio. And now, a man who gets invited to family gatherings only by accident,
Welcome back to The Logical Report, the podcast where we examine how our beloved leaders turned democracy into a Mad Libs game written by a drunk raccoon. I'm your host, Sergio, and today we're going back in time to the 1980s, the era of shoulder pads, cocaine optimism, mullets, fanny packs, the electric slide, and a former B-movie star who thought jelly beans were a food group and deregulation was a love language. Yes, folks, we're talking about Ronald Reagan, the man who told America it was morning again and then turned off the alarm clock of accountability. Today's episode, Ronald Reagan and the Death of News, or how one actor killed the fairness doctrine and let Tucker Carlson be born. Okay, now, before we drag Ronald Reagan across the coals like a well-done steak at a Republican barbecue, let's talk about what the fairness doctrine actually was. Imagine a time when news stations were required by law to present both sides of a controversial issue. I know, insane, right? It's like being forced to show empathy or fact-checking. Gross! The fairness doctrine came out of 1949 FCC regulations. Basically, broadcasters had to do one, devote some airtime to important public issues, and two, give opposing viewpoints a chance to speak. It was the equal time policy before Twitter made everyone equal by ruining all of our attention spans. Tonight at 6, the president says nuclear war is bad. And at 6:30, a guy from Nebraska will argue that, actually, nuclear war is pretty cool. Now, let's fast forward to 1981. Ronald Reagan takes office. America gets swept up in the fantasy that a guy who once starred in Bedtime for Bonzo should be in charge of nuclear codes. Well, I don't see why a man who acted with a chimpanzee can't also run a superpower. Reagan came in with one goal: deregulate everything. And if it had a rule, a check, a balance, he wanted to chainsaw it like Leatherface at a Chamber of Commerce meeting. So naturally, the fairness doctrine was in his crosshairs. Why? Because it made it harder for conservative talk radio to do its thing. Yell, scare old people, and pretend tax cuts make everyone richer. His FCC chairman, Mark Fowler, a man who looked at news and said, "What if this was just entertainment with yelling?" began gutting the FCC like it was a salmon filled with liberal bias.
the public interest, the market will decide what's good for people.
Spoiler alert, the market decided what's good is whatever sells gold bond powder and erectile dysfunction pills. By 1987, boom, the fairness doctrine was officially repealed. Ronald Reagan had done it. He freed the media, freed it to lie uninterrupted forever. The ink on the repeal wasn't even dry before Rush Limbaugh burst through the radio like Kool-Aid Man full of rage and cholesterol. Without the fairness doctrine, stations could now blast conservative talk all day, every day, and never once say, "But wait, let's hear from the other side."
Liberals want to ban your guns, take your money and make you gay. I'm Rush, and I'll be screaming this until I'm a millionaire.
By the early 1990s, conservative radio was everywhere. AM radio became Fox News' prequel, and no one had to be fair. No one had to offer balance because Reagan's ghost was whispering,
"Well, fairness is for communists."
The absence of the fairness doctrine didn't just mess up radio, it affected all media. Rupert Murdoch looked at America and said, "I think this place needs a TV version of tabloid rage." Enter Fox News in 1996 with a motto that should have been fair and balanced, but really meant angry and yelling. Without the fairness doctrine, Fox could let Sean Hannity monologue for hours like your uncle after 2 bourbons. And now we have news that isn't news, social media echo chambers, a guy named Alex Jones screaming about gay frogs while selling you brain pills made from rhino toads. All because Reagan looked at a regulation meant to protect democracy and said, "Get that government off of my jelly bean stash." So what does this mean for us now? Let's break it down like a BuzzFeed listicle for dying democracies. 1, the news isn't about facts, it's about vibes. 2, debate has been replaced with shouting. 3, facts are now opinions, and opinions are now viral content. 4, the marketplace of ideas is just a Walmart with no doors and a meth lab inside.
In my day, we had Cronkite. Now I get my news from a guy named Patriot Eagle 69420 on Rumble.
And this was the slow, Reagan-led death of accountability in news. And once the fairness doctrine died, the door opened to an entire genre of news whose only requirement was making boomers mad enough to buy a pillow. So here we are, 40 years later. You want to know why no one agrees on anything? Why your aunt thinks Biden is a clone and Joe Rogan is a medical journal? It all goes back to Reagan, the jelly bean king, smiling in the sunset while torching the last hopes of media integrity. We traded both sides of the story for both sides of the shotgun. All because one guy thought America should be run like a Hollywood script. Spoiler alert, it was a bad script. Thanks for listening to The Logical Report. If you liked the episode, smash that like button like Reagan smashed journalistic responsibility. Subscribe and leave a review. And remember, the next time someone says the media is so biased, just whisper, "Reagan did that." See you next week when we ask, did Richard Nixon invent gaslighting, or was he just bad at lying? Good night, everybody.